We have everybody in. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation. My name is Nia Murray. I am the Programs Coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included, we have the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and on behalf of our presenting partner, Lone Star Legal Aid, today we have Mr. John Trevino, who's going to be providing you guys with the legal information regarding protecting yourself against contractor scams. But also included in our partnership, we also have the Earl Carl Institute, Texas Legal Services Center, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Harris Central Appraisal District, and the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. And together we make up a month of service. And basically, what a month of service is the collaboration of all of our organizations coming together on a monthly basis and offering a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to a lot of communities that do not have access to resources, information, don't know where to go for particular services. So we decided several years ago that we were going to collaborate and join a lot of our initiatives together in hopes of creating a larger impact and getting more information out to the community. So we used to go out into different areas around the city of Houston, stay there for an entire month offering these different workshops. Um, and then decided to kind of move around. But of course, due to COVID, we've had to adjust to the virtual platform. But that has allowed us the opportunity to reach even more people and get more information out about community empowerment, asset building, asset protection, and community empowerment, asset building, asset protection, and the maintaining of generational wealth. So, um, hurricane season is coming up soon. So, we wanted to make sure that we get some kind of information out there to people to be a little bit proactive as it comes to dealing with a lot of different contractors. Sometimes people just don't know what questions to ask. They don't know where to go to find reputable contractors, what the process is like when you're dealing with a contractor as far as the contract goes, making sure that they're vetted, that they have insurance, or that they're bonded, and that they're licensed in the state, and so on and so forth. So we're going to give you guys a lot of information here today in regards to that and what you need to do to protect yourselves against those kinds of scams that are prevalent in a lot of communities, especially around the city of Houston, because we do have so many storms and hurricanes and things. You get contractors that kind of go all over the place and don't know really who to trust. You know, one minute that they're there, and the next minute they're completely gone and out of business, or they uh, reestablished a new business under a completely new name, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that are going on out there, and we want you guys to be protected as best as possible. So today we're going to have Mr. John Ross Trevino with Lone Star Legal Aid providing information for you, as well as a Texas licensed inspector, residential inspector with GI inspections, Mr. Clifford Joe, who's going to be presenting a little bit later on some information for you guys and some tips to kind of help you along. So if you are joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type your questions or your comments into the comment section. I know that there were a couple of questions that were emailed to me in advance, and we'll make sure that we get those addressed for you. Do know that we are recording the session as well as broadcasting live on our social media platform on YouTube. So we do ask that your questions to stay in general as you possibly can, so that we don't divulge any personal detailed information or kind of have it getting out there for people to have access to. So if you are joining us on our social media channels, then please feel free to type your question into the comment section, and I'll make sure that your question gets addressed aloud there at the end as well. So do keep in mind that the information that does get presented here today is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered legal advice. However, we do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners like Lone Star Legal Aid should you find yourself in need of any civil legal assistance and need any other legal resources. So with that being said, we're going to move right on into our presentation and go ahead and get started. So Mr. Trevino, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can go ahead and get started?
Yeah, sounds good. Um, Hi, my name is John Ross Trevino. I'm an attorney with Lone Star Legal Aid. Um, I've been with Lone Star Legal Aid for about 10 years. Excuse me. All right, just making sure I'm pulling this up. I've been with Lone Star Legal Aid for about 10 years. Lone Star Legal Aid is a nonprofit organization that helps low-income individuals. We provide free legal services for civil matters. I am the managing attorney of our housing and consumer office. And what that entails is generally your house, car, or money. If there's some kind of dispute that you have with that, we represent individuals who have difficulties with their house, their car, and their money. And so I appreciate everybody who's being here. I want to re-emphasize that what I'm trying to provide today is information. I do want and encourage everybody to ask questions, but I want the questions to be general. If you have specific questions about, yourself or your legal needs, I encourage you to contact Lone Star Legal Aid and go through that process so that we can be more specific. You can help get that attorney-client privilege, and we can, best assess you. When it's this open forum, I'm happy to give general information, but if it's too particular to an individual, it's a little bit more difficult to talk about that as this is a public forum. All right, so contractor scams. Like was said previously, hurricane season, which is almost year-round in Houston, is coming upon us. There's just things to know. A lot of this is good general information, but when you're in a kind of a hurricane situation, a disaster situation, there's going to be, more time sensitive. You're going to want to have this information ahead of time. Think about it when it happens, because a lot of scammers, they you know, what they want is to take advantage of that panic, take advantage of the chaos in those situations. And so I'm just here to give you the information so you can be a little bit forewarned is forearmed. You can have this information and be prepared in case of those kind of situations. All right, so where scams can occur. Scams can occur anywhere, but they're more likely to occur in these kind of situations: online, email, text, over the phone, and in person. And so be aware of where they can occur. According to the FTC, the most common type of scams are imposter scams, where the scammer imitates an individual. A lot of these kind of contractor scams are going to be people who come in, say that their contractor work, say that they've been doing it 10 or 20 years, but when push comes to shove, they haven't been doing anything in the past. They try to take the money as fast as they can, and they try to get out. Fraud is the largest account, and the largest number of complaints in the FTC. Again, the main type of fraud that's going to occur in these kind of contractor scams are people who basically aren't contractors. They come to your house, they want the money fast, they try to convince you that you need something, and they want to get it done get the money before you have time to think about it, shop around. One common theme that I think I'm going to express throughout this is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A lot of these scams, if you prevent it, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache, a lot of trouble. While I'll talk about ways that you can, recover from a scam, really the best way is to avoid entering into a scam agreement. If you are feeling pressured, take the time. Again, what they're trying to do is take advantage of that feeling of anxiousness that you need to get something done right away, that you need to get this done. They'll usually talk in terms of, oh, this needs to get done super fast. I need the money now. I need the money now so that I can start. And then they pressure you. They pressure you in the type of ways that they want you to pay. They want you to pay in cash. They want you to pay it all up front. And so these are things to think about. This information that I have here, how do scammers reach you? One thing that I want to point out is how much is by phone, email, and website. And one thing to think about, the consumer-initiated contact is much lower than all the other scams. And so, during these hurricane seasons, disaster seasons, what you're going to see a lot of is people going door to door, coming to you. But it's a lot less likely to be scam oriented if you do the research, you look online, you kind of see where there's reputable people in the past who have reviews, who have the Better Business Bureau, just reviews in general. You can look at their website, you can look at their physical address, and again, it's a lot less likely that if you initiate the contact with the person doing the contract work, it's a lot less likely that it's going to be a scam. The people who are coming to you, people who are coming door to door, that's more likely to be a scam. People reaching out to you, sending you phone, email, websites, sending you stuff in the mail. That's just a little bit more likely to indicate that they're trying to scam you. Again, these storm chasers, basically what they're called. In the last disasters in Houston, you see a lot and a huge influx of individuals from other states coming in to do the work. And, these storm chasers, they show up quickly. They usually are going door to door, offering services affected in the neighborhood. Now, one of the things you can do to prevent it, like I said, besides just going to their website, looking at physical addresses, is check the state licensing requirements. The TDIC, the Texas Department of Insurance, is going to have licensing requirements. Many of these scammers, many of these people coming down aren't licensed and they fail to obtain any kind of state license in regards to the work they're going to do. And again, there's different licensing agencies for the type of work, but what you want to make sure of is that, ask those questions. Are you licensed? What's your license number? And then you can look them up. Again, they're going to try to pressure you to make a deal fast, pay money fast. And I think that's always just kind of a theme of the scams. Now, more sophisticated scammers may have a state license number, but that information is not always too accurate. And so you may also want to reach out to the agency that's issuing the license, follow up, verify, and just kind of do your due diligence. A lot of this, again, is looking up, these are going to be pretty large home repairs. You're going to spend a lot of money. And so you're going to want to do the work on the front end. I think that's going to just kind of be a theme of doing the work on the front end. As a lawyer, when I see, people who come to me, a lot of the work on the front end wasn't getting done. And so one of the ways you can prevent that, look at the licensing, look at the internet, look at reviews. And so, again, one of the main ways that they come around and, call them storm chasers, the contractor, one, begins the work. They might initially undervalue the estimate. And what they're asking for is receive a partial payment or full payment. And at some point, they disappear. And your house is in the same or worse condition. This is kind of the most common. Like I said, again, in the times after a hurricane, there were houses that were extremely flooded, in neighborhoods where all the houses needed work to get done. These contractors would go door to door, try to collect money, and then just basically wouldn't show up. There's a huge need of help from people, and they would kind of just take advantage, take the money, and then you wouldn't be able to get in contact with them. The second kind of way is looking for people would demand the full payment up front so they can expedite the work. Again, they're there trying to convince you that, oh, I need the money so that I can get the work started for you. They're going to pressure you into getting money real fast. Then they say, I need to go pick up the supplies, and they may not show up. You may not have the contact information for them. And again, this is problematic, and why the prevention is worth a pound of cure, because you give them the money, there may not be any recourse right away. Again, what you have to do is on these repairs that might need to be done fast and need immediate attention. If the scammer is left with the money, you're on the hook to find another person to get these repairs done fast. And you're behind the eight ball because you've given them the money, A lot of times these scammers may slow roll it, so they try to get a little bit done, but what they produce isn't anything that's useful. So basically, you need to hire a new contractor to start over. And the homeowner is just left behind on the money and facing down, having to do legal consequences against somebody. All right, so how do you protect yourself against these scams? Again, really, it's going to come down to your good judgment, being prepared, and not feeling pressured. You verify the legitimacy of the buyer before moving forward with the purchase or sale. Research the reviews, the Better Business Bureau, customer feedback. Be cautious of buyer and sellers with mostly unfavorable feedback ratings or no ratings at all. If you're having a difficult time finding them and doing a research online, it might be too good to be true. You want to find reputable businesses. Word of mouth is another good way. A friend who's had work done, talk with them, see who they used, and see if you can use those same people. You want to go to their website, actually see if they have a website, and make sure that that information on the website looks correct. You want to ask about return policies and warranties, and you never want to pay the item in full before seeing it. So again, most of these contracts for contractor work, what you want to do is have it set up so that you pay in installments. Once a certain amount of work is through, you make a payment. Once they meet another milestone, you're going to want to make a payment. And this is just good practice in general, so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're able to see the progression, be able to be satisfied with what's going on. Again, I'll say the location, having a physical address, being able to know where to locate these individuals is extremely beneficial. When they come to your house, door to door, you may not get the information from them about who they are or where they are, and you don't have any way of verifying it. Businesses with a physical location, at least, and you can verify that physical location there. At least if you have a complaint, you have an issue, you have somewhere to go, somewhere to look at, so that you can enforce your rights, be able to, complain with them, be able to find them if you need to make a complaint. If you file a complaint against them, there's a physical location for other people to actually be able to find them. So again, having a physical location, being able to physically locate these scammers, or even not scammers, but if they don't have a physical location, then it's highly likely that if they scam you, they can get away with it because you're not going to be able to find them. They can leave state very easily. People who have physical locations are more tied to the community. They're more able to, they're going to stick around even during hard times because they have that physical location. And then when talking to them, get the contract, work orders, and receipts in writing. Another huge aspect of this is to get everything in writing and be able to have, what you do in writing. The clearer the contracts, the clearer the work orders, the more protected you are as a customer. It identifies the work to be done, when it'll be done, and that's just some things to think about. If you turn over money without any of these written contracts, it's very hard to enforce it, very hard to enforce your rights. So again, knowing a reputable business in this kind of space is going to be one that prepares the contract for you, prepares the work orders, and gives you a receipt. So, a good business is already going to kind of have this down. If you're the one asking for this stuff, if you're the one asking to get a contract written up, a work order written up, you're almost already behind, and you should be a little bit wary of the business. Some businesses operate like that, but to protect yourself, you're going to want to make sure you get those contracts in writing, the work orders in writing, and the receipts. All right, now we'll go to payment methods. I kind of spoke on this before, but this is another crucial aspect of scammers and something to be wary about. Scammers basically want to get paid in cash, or other kind of electronic payments. They want this because it's harder to trace, harder to get back, harder to claw back. The payment method that gives the best protection for a consumer is actually a credit card. Credit card have what's called chargebacks. And so if you're not happy with the work, you can dispute it, and you dispute it with your card issuer. And there's a lot of protections. Those credit card companies have a lot of sway, and you're usually able to, do the chargeback, get the money back, and be able to contest the charges. Debit cards don't have the same protections as credit cards. Debit card, really, the only protection you kind of have is what's called unauthorized charges. And so if it wasn't you who did the charge, then you could potentially get it reversed. But, in these kind of situations, if you authorize the charge, then it's a lot harder to dispute the debit card charges and dispute some of these other ones. And so what's kind of being even more common in the digital age, electronic payments, Venmo, Zelle, they're starting to develop more protections, but a lot of those protections are going to be similar to debit cards, where you can challenge it if it's an unauthorized charge, but you're not really able to get that charge back like a credit card if you're not satisfied with the goods or services. Again, the credit card is really the best way to, safest payment method to kind of protect yourself. You have that option of a chargeback. Cash is probably the most vulnerable. Once you do cash, it's going to be much harder. There's no paper trail. There's no digital trail of how much. Unless you get a receipt, that cash is gone, and it's hard to prove how much was paid and where that cash is going. So again, be more wary of a contractor who's trying to push you to pay in cash, who maybe only accepts cash. There's other reasons why they, kind of probably want to do it that way, but it's less protection for you. And it's just another thing to be wary about. If they're pushing you to just give them cash and give them cash now, that's just another pressure point that scammers use to take advantage. And so non-cash payments, yeah. If you do fall victim to a scam after using any form of payment other than cash, immediately report the transaction to your bank or the service retailer. Your payment went through. If you've made an unsuccessful good faith effort to resolve the dispute with the other party. You may have protections under Regulation E of the Electronic Funds Transfer Act, Regulation Z of Truth in Lending Act, and our Section 1666I. And so again, what that is the electronic payments are a little bit more protected. If you are the victim of a scam, you want to report those immediately with the bank, the card issuer, however you used to pay, and try to get it resolved that way. While it's a little bit more difficult than maybe say like a credit card, you're still going to have, you should still go through that process to hopefully get that dispute resolved. They also sometimes work with the other party to resolve the dispute. These aren't necessarily the easiest ways. These are options. And again, the fastest way is to be careful with the money you give out and how you give it out, because it's a lot harder to get it back once you've given it out. Okay, how to protect yourself when hiring the contractor. Check the reviews, ask for references or other third-party sources to confirm the contractor is legitimate. Check the licensing agencies. Don't pay the entire amount up front. Pay in parts and as the project is completed. Make the contract written before you sign the contract. Make sure all the promises that were made are included in the final written contract. And again, that's an important way to protect yourself. We'll talk about the legal ramifications, and your legal options. But again, it's a lot harder if you don't have these written down. Oral statements are just much harder to prove during a lawsuit. And if you have a written contract, the parties can rely on that contract. You are able to rely on that contract, and you are able to explicitly point out that, the contractor said they would do this and they failed to do it. I've been harmed. They owe me money. Keep track of copies of the contract, receipts, charge orders, driver's license identification cards, a record of all payments, and keep a log of all the phone calls with conversations and activities. Again, this as an attorney, all these keeping track of all of this helps your attorney or helps an individual, helps you resolve it at the end. And they're kind of little things you don't expect. Being able to keep a log of phone calls. It makes it a lot easier for your attorney if you're able to express, I called on this date, this was the conversation, this is what they said. I called again on this date, this is the conversation we had, this is what they said. A lot of times I can get a client who says, oh, I called, 20 times and they don't know when, they don't know where, and getting that information at the back end is a little bit more difficult. On these big projects, you should be keeping all the records in a file folder. You should be keeping notes about the calls that you have, when you called, what the conversation of the call is. And again, that just goes to show, if you file a lawsuit, you tried to resolve it, you made all these calls, they were ignored, they haven't been trying to resolve it. Again, you have the record of the payments, keep the receipts, a copy of the contract. And so I highly encourage keeping a file, physical file, safe place with all of this information. Let's say there was fraud. How do you report it? Places that you can report it. Report fraud to the FTC, the State Attorney's General Office, file a police report, file a complaint with the CFPB, and protest with your bank and payment processor. These are ways to help other individuals know that the business has been defrauding you. If it's, after a disaster, could straight up be criminal if they're trying to take advantage of people after a disaster. So that's why you should reach out to State Attorney's General Office, police report. And this is more common on, at least for the State Attorney General and police report, people who took your money and left. But yeah, you want to record this information, get that information out there to help protect other individuals. A lot of these places have like a mediation where they reach out to the opposing party, they try to resolve the issue and try to get a resolution through these processes. So these are certain ways that you can report the fraud. All right, legal remedies. Again, the best way to resolve the scam is prevention. Like I said, if you have paid the scammer, you're out that money. That's money that you need to save for the repair of your home. And now you need to incur possibly legal fees, hiring a lawyer, going through the legal process, paying legal fees. And so, it's could be a long process. The legal process might take, 2 years. It's unpredictable. And there's a lot of things, but there is that option available to you. What you can do is you file small claims court and JP court if the damages are less than $20,000. JP court is basically a small claims court that allows parties a little bit more informally to resolve matters. You don't need an attorney in the JP court, and it's a court of equity, and so the court will listen to both sides. It's not as formal as some of the other courts. And so somebody without an attorney is able to present their case. But all of this, in order to sue somebody, you need to know the company and the individual to sue and be able to find them in the state to have them served. Like I've kind of emphasized before, these scammers usually are going to hide their identity. And so if you don't have a way to be able to find them and be able to sue them, you're not going to have any legal recourse. Another issue that I had pointed out is that a lot of these companies are coming from out of state. If they're coming from out of state, that usually means that they're going to go back to that state at some point. And again, it'll be very difficult to serve them in Texas if they're not in the state. And if you're not able to serve them, you're not able to get a hold of them, it makes the lawsuit even more difficult. It may make it so that you aren't able to find the person that you're trying to sue. And if you can't find them, there's no one you can sue, and it's going to be very difficult. The other issue kind of with the legal remedy is the burden is going to be on the person. The burden is going to be on the person bringing the claim. So in this instance, it's going to be on the consumer, purchase these goods. They're going to have to, it's going to be their responsibility to prove to the judge that the other side committed the fraud. So again, the difficult part is the clear-cut cases, somebody took the money and took off. The problem with those is usually they didn't give identifying information, and you can't find them. The other issue with a lot of these contractors and scams is they do some of the work, but they don't do what was promised. They don't do as good of a job as they said they were going to do. They didn't have the qualifications that they probably said that they were, and so they didn't do the job that needed to get done. You can sue them for that, but the burden is going to be on you to show, again, you're going to need the written contract to show that they promised that they would do this, they failed to do it, and now we have this problem. I just emphasize that because, you know, the burden is going to be on the individual who brings it, and so you're going to have to keep that in mind. The whole legal process, you're going to incur expenses. That includes having the service done, the filing fees, and hiring an attorney if that's what happens. You know, other fees might be for an expert witness. You might need to have another contractor say, oh, they charged the work for $20,000. In reality, the work that they did was only $5,000. And you might need to pay a contractor to be a witness to do all that. Now, you know, I work at Lone Star Legal Aid. A lot of these fees can be waived by filing a statement of inability to afford costs if you're a low income. But again, it's something that puts the burden on the individual that has to bring it. When you get put in these situations, it's a lot easier to try to avoid the situation than remedy it on the back end. You're going to put in time, you're going to put in money to try and resolve the issue. And then finally, if you go through the legal process, even with the judgment, it may be difficult to collect. Again, like I said, if you have difficulty finding these individuals, you're going to have difficulty collecting. If the contractor doesn't have any collectible assets, then what you have is a judgment and you're not able to actually get money out of them. And so that is just something to think about. Like they said, if they are bonded, if the contractor is bonded, if the contractor has assets like a physical location, then they are more likely to pay these legal judgments. Because if they don't, you can put a lien on their property with the judgment, and you know they would want to pay that, or else that property gets foreclosed on. So these are all good things to keep in mind. Most important thing is that if you don't feel comfortable, please contact a lawyer as soon as you can. Lone Star Legal Aid is available to help. Our phone number is 713-652-0077. And you can go to the website at lonestarlegal.org and you can complete an application. I appreciate y'all's time. I'll look to see if we have questions and share. I'll leave this up a little bit longer.
There aren't any questions in the chat just yet. We kind of want to wait and hold questions until the end as well. But the contact information for Lone Star Legal Aid, I will provide to all of the participants who registered for today, along with the link. So in case you guys are, again, in need of any civil legal assistance, then you'll be able to reach out to them directly. Please provide the full name of CFPB.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
And I'll include a link to their website too. And I do believe that they have a specific page about contractor scam, if I can recall correctly, the last time I was there. So I'll include that link in the email that I send out to everyone too. But I'll go find it and try to put it into the chat as well. So, all right. So moving right along, next we're gonna have Mr. Clifford Joe with GI Inspections. The reason I asked Mr. Joe to join us here today is because he is a licensed inspector with the state of Texas. He's worked with a lot of builders, a lot of homeowners, home buyers, for people that folks that are consumers that are looking to get repairs done. So to kind of give you a little bit more insight about working with contractors and what you as a consumer should be looking for when it comes to knowing what questions to ask when you're out there doing your homework up front, what to kind of look for like throughout the process, and knowing um, what to actually even hire them to do. I mean, because a lot of times we just know I know I need to get a roof done. What does it entail to get an actual roof fixed on your house, and what does it mean to get it repaired or replaced? So it's like those little things that we as consumers just generally just don't know when you're actually even out there trying to talk to a contractor. You may know some questions and know how to keep up with the contracts and the paperwork, but I don't have a clue as to what I'm asking them, what I'm looking at when they're out there trying to do a repair or what have you. So we're going to get that kind of perspective from Mr. Clifford Joe today. So without further ado, Mr. Joe, want to go ahead and introduce yourself and move right on into your presentation?
Okay, mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, great, great, great. I'm Clifford Jones with GI Inspections. I've actually worked with Nia for some years now. And Mr. Trevino, I've seen you online at a couple of other workshops as well. But we're going to go into mainly, how to avoid those scams. And as Mr. Trevino mentioned, we talked about pressure tactics, large payments, no communication. And these are some of the things that I see when I get called out. Because not only am I an inspector, I'm also doing a lot of consulting work. And one of the things that I notice in this region, we see a lot of fraud when it comes to roof inspection. Most roof inspectors that go out, I mean, not roof inspectors, roofing contractors that go out, we see a lot of problems with the roof was not windstorm certified. That's the number one problem that I see. Roof not windstorm certified. So now they're in the process of getting the insurance is about to go out on them because they don't have a windstorm roof put on. Somebody told them real fast, yeah, I could put a roof on there. We'll do the windstorm certification for you. And that's where the problem comes in. That when I see those type of items in, if you live in zone 2 or zone 1 or C, where you have to have windstorm insurance. Something else to look out for, like I say, lack of communication. Sometimes when you get that bid that's just too good to be true, it's lower than everybody out there. You got that bid. Now you're thinking, okay, they're going to do my work for X amount of dollars, and you're thinking you're getting a good deal, but you're not. If I was a homeowner, the first thing I would ask for is the scope of work. That scope of work is very important. I'll give you an example. If you're getting a roof replaced, you're thinking they're going to go in, replace all the underlayment, the decking, if it's rotted, the flashings, any type of roof vents, anything that we have problems with. But if that's not in your scope of work, it's not going to happen. And sometimes we go out, we look at homes on the roof, and you're the homeowner thinking that these guys are going to come in and make all these repairs, and they didn't. All they did was tore the roof off, put another one up there, and that was it. They used everything that they could reuse and wrote it up as replacement. So now that's a problem because when I come and look at it, I have to report what I see. I would recommend that go out, if you're going to go out and look at this, get at least 3 bids. Even when I do home inspections and I advise the client on anything, if it's general contracting work, plumbing, or electrical, where you have to have a license, get at least 3 bids. I just did a home recently that had termites on it. Waiting on some bids to come back now. You never know. So don't allow someone to pressure you into signing something that you don't know what you're signing, especially if what you're signing is blank. Definitely don't pay up front. Businesses usually have lines of credit where they can get the material up front and do the work. Now, unfortunately, yeah, that scam thing works on both ends. Sometimes you have property owners who don't want to pay. but you have more scammers out there that don't want to do the work. So that's where the problem comes in. Report those complaints. Like Mr. Trevino said, I've heard Ms. Murray say it too. Report the complaints. The more complaints you have on the table is going to force the state to start really looking into these people, because they are storm chasers. It's storm season, and they are out and they're moving around. Excuse me. Another thing I would recommend, and this is me, and this is what I explain to every client. Once you're out there and you're getting the work done in the home, say you're going to get the electrical redone throughout your home. You're going to get the plumbing redone throughout your home. Do it in phases and have the work inspected as you go. If I'm going to do my electrical, once the demo is done, let me look at the work, what I'm looking like once my walls are open. Because once they're walled up, you're not going to be able to see it. Did the electrician do the work up to standard? A lot of times when I go in and I look at that home, I could tell if a licensed electrician did that work. The reason I could tell, the way I could tell, is the workmanship. Because there are certain things a polished electrician is going to do that a non-licensed electrician is going to do. They're totally two different worlds. It's going to look all messed up from top to bottom. Same with the plumbing. You could tell if a professional plumber went in and did that work as opposed to someone around the corner. That's why it's important to get your references too. Get your references, because once you get your references, they say a lot. They say a lot about that person, about that company, because if that company is in good standing, they're just not going to let anybody come in and do work with them. They're just not going to do it because their name is on the line. Licenses, insurance, even bonds. I need to know all of that up front. If the contractor cannot provide you those items, you may want to, think for yourself, but you may want to just go ahead and walk away from that one because it's not looking good for you as the homeowner. So again, if you're out there, you're trying to get your home in order, say you're doing a whole remodel. Some of you are going to be doing what's called 203K loan. That loan, you have to have that work inspected before they even pay out. Before the bank pay out, you have to have the work inspected. So when we see those type of repairs that are not done up to standard, they're going to have to come back out. Contractors come back out, make the repairs, and go on. If the contractor not getting paid, and he's only going to get paid contingent on completing the work, he's going to come back and complete the work. I've seen builders that are building here in Houston that went out, built the property, and the city came through and failed the structure because it was built in a floodplain and the elevation was off on the foundation. Just right there, wrong. But that had to do with the contractor. He should have known because the drawings were there. That's something else you want to have on site. When they're doing your work, what drawings do you have? If it's work that requires engineered drawings, make sure those drawings are in place and they're stamped by a licensed professional engineer. It makes a big difference because if you deviate from that drawing, you're going to have a problem. But if you have those drawings on site, more than likely, they're going to know what they're doing. We're not winging it. It's already been pre-planned out. The stamps is there letting you know that, hey, this drawing is good. Follow it. You're not going to have a problem. I'll give you an example. I got a call to go out to look at a property in Pearland. Pearland is a windstorm zone 2, but you had to put the patio up there. It had to be installed to windstorm standards, and it wasn't. As a matter of fact, one of the first things anybody's going to ask if they're on it, where are the drawings? Where are the drawings? Where's the permit? Because you have to pull a permit when you're doing some extensive work on the home. Because if the city comes by and see that there's no permit, they're going to find you. They're going to find the contractor too. So you have to be ahead of that. Well, anyway, I get out there and I'm looking at the roof and the patio, and I'm asking, hey, what a drawing? Didn't know. All he showed me was a rough sketch where someone drew something out with a pencil. And I was like, well, this is not going to get it. You had to have engineer plan drawings on site. And they didn't have them. So just off of that, they were wrong. And from what I understood, that guy who did that patio had been doing, he did come recommended, but they've been doing patios all in that whole area. And unfortunately, when the insurance companies start looking and see these additions done to the house, you're not going to be able to get the windstorm insurance that you're going to need for that. That's, some of the things we see. Just like when you go in and say you replace that water heater. You go in and do an install on the water heater the wrong way because, yeah, it looks like it's a job that anyone can do, but it's those tiny little maneuvers that you have to know how to set to get your water heater installed properly. I've seen them when they go in, we forget to install the drip tube for the pressure relief valve. We forget to have the proper ventilation in the water closet for the water heater. Poor locations, too many bends in the flue vent pipe. We see a lot of that. But if a licensed plumber had gone in there and did the work, you would already know going in, I'm not going to have these problems because he knows the methods and requirements to get that water heater up to standard before someone come and look at it. Flooring, even though general contractors work, I see a lot of bad floorings that get installed. And some of that's on newly constructed homes, but on existing homes too. One of the key things I look at too, foundations. I see a lot of homes, matter of fact, I inspected a home where the foundation was repaired. Well, the homeowner didn't check out the credentials of the foundation company. The company had went under years ago, but they were still functioning as a foundation company, and they went out, did some work on a home, no drawings, no engineered drawings, where the piers were located, nothing. All they know is that the homeowner knew was a foundation company came in and did the work. That was it. And they can't get in touch with the foundation company till this day. So now it's going to cost them more, and it always costs more when you have to hire the right people to come in because they got to go back and start from scratch to get whatever that issue is that was done the wrong way up to snuff so to pass the second time around. And we see it a lot. Something that looks like an easy job, weekend warrior thing, and it's not. I see ACs, brand new AC system. They get installed, but they didn't get installed by, they got installed by a technician without the supervision of a contracted HVAC contractor because little things you see, you wouldn't see it out there. One of those little things you see, the size of the drain pan, is a dead giveaway. Not having the correct amount of freon in the system, that's another giveaway. Little things make a big difference, and if you don't get in front of it now, you're wondering why that unit is not cooling. Sometimes it's not cooling for that simple fact that wasn't enough freon. If that system called for 6 pounds of freon, you put in 4, it's not going to cool off properly. So those are the type of things that I go in and look at. So again, if you are in the market of getting some work done to your home, if they're going to do a complete tear down from the roof down to the studs, definitely get that scope of work. Check out the credentials. Look for more than one contractor in that field. With my plumber and my electricians, I need 3 of each, maybe 4, depending on what I'm getting at. Everything is in writing. If you get the contract and the contract has missing parts in that contract, hey, what happened here? And they say, oh, we're going to fill that in later. Nah, I need that filled in now. And the one reason on that is because sometimes you will see a contract where the numbers what the total amount will be, they leave it blank. And when the next thing you know, you were told verbally it was going to be $10,000 to do this. And then you look again when you get the contract, you already signed it. It was blank when you signed it, and they put in 15,000. It was going to come up with that, and more than likely, it's probably going to go with that number. Maybe there was a contingency budget in there, maybe not. I don't know, but when you sign for it, you sign for it. Again, those low bids, problems. Again, no lack of communication. I'm calling the contractor, it's not returning my car. I got a problem over here. I got toilet water backing up into my tub. What's going on? You guys did this work. Nobody's getting back in touch with me. Then the phone goes dead. Then that's when you start looking at the company and you realize, oh man, this company got a boatload of complaints against it. But had you done the homework on that company earlier, probably would have dodge that bullet. So again, we see that more often than not. Again, the pressure sales, you know, down payments up front. They want all this money up front. No, we don't do that. No contracts, all verbal. No, we don't do that. You know, and like I said, right now, a home that I'm doing in West Houston, I stepped in just as an inspector to just inspect the work that all the GCs were in there doing. And to my surprise, they were actually doing a good job. I really had a couple of, didn't have any major issues, but I did have a couple of recommendations. And those recommendations in that particular property was, since you did a break in the water line, because you replumbed some areas of the house, not all. So what is your scope of work? Go ahead and make sure you give that to the homeowner and pressure test this entire house. Pressure test the water, pressure test the gas line, because you also broke the gas line when you installed the generator. So little things like that, you know, pay off big in the end, because especially with a gas line, you'll have a problem where you'll see bubbles coming out of the ground during the rainy season. And you're wondering what is that? Look at your gas line. There's usually a gas leak somewhere, or you can smell it if it's bad enough. So to any of you out there, you know, I'll take any questions that you have, if you have any, because this pretty much concludes what I have to say to you.
Okay. I just put the link for the Consumer Financial Protection
Okay.
Bureau in the chat here. Let's see, there are a couple questions. Oh, she did that already. Are there reputable resources to find licensed contractors, i.e. Angie's Neighborhood, Best Pick Reports, Yelp, those kinds of things?
Better Business Bureau, I would go there. I thought didn't Angie's List go under?
They came back.
Okay. I would start with the old ones. I'm kind of old school. I like, if they've been around for 20, 30 years, Better Business Bureau has been there. Sometimes word of mouth, the guy who did the roof on your house, on your neighbor's house, and you looking at him do the work up there and how proficient they were, I would go to my neighbor or the contractors that put the roof up there. Hey, look at my roof. What it's going to cost me to get my roof replaced? Sometimes those neighborhood references are the best. And then you got Better Business Bureau. That, like I said, that's my go-to. Who else? I mean, you can drive or you can do your searches, but if you do your searches, just be diligent with it. Go that extra mile to see. Talk to the contractors if they're willing to talk to you and they're not like you're wasting their time. That's the one I want to go to, because he's answering every question that I've asked. So actually, I'm looking at Tanya Lewis 203K loan. That's your realtor. Actually, Nia should be able to help you with that one. And your loan officer will be able to help you with it too.
Yeah, I was about to say, your loan officer, not all mortgage companies do 203K loans. You'd have to find out if they actually do. The 203K loan is basically where you're trying to purchase a house, but you're also trying to get repairs and things done at the same time. So sometimes it just kind of depends on if their mortgage company is actually able to do that or not. Let's see what else is there here. Being licensed and bonded. What does it mean to be bonded?
That's part of your insurance package. Is you have to have a bond. So if anything to happen, that you have a bond outside, like a cash bond. So if you got sued or anything, you can pay out with that bond.
And how much should somebody be bonded for? Like when you, or is there a dollar amount that's like on average?
20,000, 50,000, you know. Sometimes that's a good tool to have in place though.
I had a question for John. Is there a statute of limitations on when you can actually go after a contractor when they either haven't done the work or they've committed some kind of fraud?
Yeah, statute of limitations. So statute of limitations means the amount of time that you are able to bring a lawsuit when some of this stuff happens. And so for a breach of contract, that'd be 4 years. I wouldn't encourage waiting that long. Really, the idea and concept behind the statute of limitations is the longer out you go, the less information and data that's going to be there. So the fresher it is, I would try to push the lawsuit as fast as possible. Like I said, the lawsuit's going to take its time. But you're going to have the information, you're going to have the contracts. If you're waiting 3 or 4 years, you might lose the contracts, you might lose some of the paperwork, and you lose the evidence that you might have for that. But yeah, generally you can have up to 4 years to file, a contract against these individuals.
And
No, sorry.
go
There's
ahead.
also the DTPA is 2 years. So that's the Deceptive Trades and Practices Act. If they tell you something that basically was a lie, that's 2 years. And so again, trying to get all that information ahead of time. And if you've been wronged, I would encourage you to talk to an attorney as soon as possible.
What do you do if you've dealt with a contractor and now they've filed bankruptcy, but then they turn around and then open up another business in that, and same type of business?
Then yeah, you're really following that business. I would say so. The bankruptcy process, they would have to give you notice. If you have a claim against a party and they filed a bankruptcy, they should give you notice. There's a time limit on that bankruptcy court in which you can file what's called a proof of claim. A proof of claim is basically saying this company wronged me, they owe me this amount of money. Then the bankruptcy court kind of goes through a process and determines if that bankrupt entity has money to pay out on your proof of claim. If they're starting a new business, I think the bankruptcy court might want to know about that because they just want to make sure that they're not moving any of the assets from the other business, trying to avoid assets, trying to hide assets and move them into the new business. A lot of companies, I mean, unfortunately, I guess if it does go bankrupt and they were found to be bankrupt, you may not have a claim against a new business if they start up a new business.
Is there a way to search if a contractor has filed bankruptcy before, or if they've been sued for consumer issues or whatever,
Yeah.
or
So the court's websites, you're able to do a public search. In Harris County, you can go to the Harris County District Clerk, and you might have to register, but it's free to the public that you can search their name and see what kind of lawsuits come up. And then the Harris County Clerk's Office, you can do the same. Bankruptcy court might be a little bit more difficult. I don't know if individuals can access it as easily, but an attorney can definitely look at the public records to see if there's a bankrupting entity. But I think your point is good in that, yes, you can check the Harris County District Clerk, the Harris County Clerk's Office, search the records, and it's all public information. You can just type in their name and you can see how many lawsuits pop up for those entities, how recent they were, and then you can even look at them and see what the lawsuits are about.
mm, 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 mm. Okay. Let's see here. Is the Greater Houston area considered a windstorm area, and how do I determine if I'm in it?
No, the greater Houston area is not. But if you live along, if you're in Pearland, that's one zone. Chambers County is like far Baytown, that's one. Even toward, like I say, you're going towards Galveston, that's another one. But the best way to go is TDI, Texas Department of Insurance. That's who you should call. Call them and give them your property address, and they'll tell you if it's a windstorm environment or not. What I am seeing, that now that you mentioned it, winds like roofs that are being put up, they have to be put up to a specific method if you're in one of those zones. I see people now installing a windstorm certified roof in a non-windstorm zone. Like I've seen roofs that are built to windstorm standards for zone 2, which is pretty much Pearland area, but they're in the woodlands. Or they're in not just necessarily woodlands, just Conroe up in those areas. Because what they're doing is taking advantage of the discount. with the insurance company. But I would always say double check to see if you're going to get the discount if you put that roof up, because you want to double check with your insurance provider, because not all insurance providers will give that discount. But so far, the ones that I've gone out and did the inspections for, they did it for the insurance discount, and they got it.
What's the best way that you recommend, either of you? Like if when you just said about the certified windstorm roof versus just a regular roof, and I've got a contractor telling me I need the windstorm certified roof, but I actually don't. How am I supposed to know what I need? Like,
First question I would ask: am I in the windstorm zone? And it's the zone 1, zone 2, and C1. So if I ask, and you can verify this for yourself, again, you go through the Texas Department of Insurance. Once they look up your address, they'll be able to tell you. Because ask your neighbors. Because if your next door neighbor's saying that they had to pay for windstorm insurance, it's a real good chance you may have to. But do your due diligence. Go and look it up, call them. They may have you on hold for a minute, but it's worth the wait. And you tell them, hey, I want to know if I'm in a windstorm zone. Because sometimes this is out going towards Baytown. There are two parts of Baytown. One part is actually in a windstorm zone. The other part is, it's crazy. And then they're like right on the buffer. Me, if I'm on that buffer, I think I'm going to go ahead and get me a windstorm certified roof.
so even if it's just not just the roof, if it's something else, like
Your
you
exterior
go in and you
siding,
get
your
some,
windows
you
and
get
doors.
no, I mean like even in just in general stuff, like you've got somebody coming in to change your windows and doors or
Mhm.
something, and then they are in there looking and they tell you that, oh well, now all of this needs to be replaced when all of that was fine before you went in there and started looking at stuff. How do we know as a consumer, like when they're telling you what you actually need to get done is what you need to get done?
Uh, is the scope of work? What's my scope of work? Now, if I see when I'm doing say I'm doing my demo to replace my window, and they're doing a demo around the windows, and they start busting out a little drywall here and there, and they discover there's some termites. Now I have termites. Okay, yeah, we can replace these windows, but you might want to get this termite issue taken care of too while we got the walls open, because it's not going to get any better. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as upgrading to something else that you may not, I understand what you're saying, that you may not need that. Now, if I don't need it, it's not going to affect the performance of my home, leave it alone. This is
I
my budget that I can afford to work with. And I don't want to go out of my budget for something that I don't need.
We had a coworker once that had gotten some repairs and stuff done, and in the midst of getting repairs, she also went ahead and got the AC unit replaced. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
AC unit that they told her she needed was way too big for her house, and she didn't need it, and it
So now she
caused
got
all
mold
kinds of.
problems.
Now she's got mold problems on top of that. Now she's fighting with the contractor about the unit that they sold her, because now and in repairing the mold or remedying the mold issue. Now, what does a consumer do when you've got that kind of stuff happening?
Well, I can drill down on that one. First, I will file a complaint with it's not Trek. I can't even remember. I got it's not TDI. It's Texas licensing and insurance. I got it in my wallet right there because I have an HVAC license. I don't use it much, but I don't have my wallet in front of me. Huh. But the license, when you're licensed with the state, it's not through Trek. TDLR, that's who it is. Go through them because I would file a complaint there against the installer because the house was not properly measured for that unit. And we see that often, where the home, matter of fact, they were doing this during, what was that, COVID. Supplies were low, so homes were being built with undersized units. And then when the supplies started coming in, homes were being built with oversized units. And that either the undersized unit, you're going to have a high utility bill. The oversized unit, you're going to have a mold and moisture problem. sometimes the new insulation they have out there, they have this new attic insulation. That attic insulation is some of the best out there. It looks like little bitty cork and uh, sponge type stuff. Very efficient, better than some of the energy the insulation that's out there now. But it's not designed for new homes. And this young lady she told me that she was having an AC problem. Matter of fact, this was out 288 Beltway area. She had so much moisture in her house. And I said, well, she had a number of problems. One, she didn't let her house air out after she had the carpet cleaned. So that's the dampness that's there. You got once you get the carpet cleaned in your house, you got to leave the windows open and let them dry out. So that was one problem. And the AC was having some problems. The pump was leaking. I saw that. But when I went into the attic, I noticed this new insulation that she had up there. Mind you, her house was less than 10 years old. You don't need that type of insulation in this home. You over insulated your home. This is your issue right here. And they didn't remove the old insulation. They just put that new insulation over the old insulation. It has the old bat insulation that you have, but blown cellulose, and you put this new stuff on there. Now your house is over insulated. So even when that carpet dries out, you're still gonna have a moisture problem in your home. I've seen houses where, like I say, this is to those who are listening, be careful when somebody want to sell you an AC system, make sure it's properly sized for your home. The average square footage is about 1 ton per 450 square feet. That's about average. Anything above that, you think you're doing yourself a favor buying a bigger unit, but it's going to cycle more because the air is going to run through. Once it shuts off, now you got a moisture problem because it's so damp, it's going to heat up again, and it's just going to run over and over again. And you're going to just have it. Eventually, it's just going to start what they call short cycling because this issue that you have with AC just because it's oversized. And back on those, if you're getting the AC system replaced, have the technician verify how much Freon he's putting in the system. And one way they can verify that is there's a scale that they set the Freon tank on. And as they're looking at the gauges and they're looking at the scale, and whatever number they have at the start and what the number they have at the end, and when they make that subtraction, that's how they know how much Freon they put in there, and that's how much they charge you for. Call around, ask about the Freon, because if I'm not mistaken, they just changed it. The new one out there. They went from 410A to something else now. So what is the dollar for it? Old systems, if you got some R22, don't be alarmed if they really hit you with a number for some R22.
I just want to kind of follow up real quick, and I want to get to the question that was just asked. So this part is for John. So when you face with those kinds of issues or need to file those complaints or something with the licensing, is there any particular evidence or information that you need to also use when you're filing those complaints or present? So if I started out with one issue and then they talked me into replacing the AC unit, but they got the AC unit that was too much, and now I got the mold, and now I got this.
Yeah.
In that kind of a scenario, what do you need to present when you're filing the complaint?
Yeah, so to kind of answer your questions, I think I'll piggyback. So one thing you said is, I think your question originally was kind of about upselling if they're trying to provide a service. They start working, they want to provide more services to you or try to upsell you into something maybe you don't need. Be wary, take the time, do the research. But one thing I'll add that I don't think I heard is have them put it in writing. If they think that there's, let's say, like a termite problem that needs to get fixed, have them put it in writing and say, during my inspection, I found termites. And that way you have it there. If later on you fit, I'll continue on with the AC. I don't know as much about ACs as everybody else, but let's say they tell you something like, oh, you need this larger AC. It'd be best if you have it in writing. That they said, did an inspection based on this, you need this AC if they're trying to sell you an AC. And then that just goes to the proof of when you file a complaint, you file a lawsuit, you have that written evidence. The other evidence you're going to want to present is all the other issues that stem from it. And again, written evidence is usually the best. And so if you have a mold problem, you need the receipts, inspection reports based on, you having to hire somebody. You can show the receipt that you had to hire somebody. You can show what those reports said. And, it's even better if it said, because of this big AC unit, you have this mold problem. Sorry. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, one other thing I was going to mention that I hadn't said, I'm suggesting that you get it in writing. And again, if somebody doesn't want to put it in writing, then that usually means they're not ready to actually do the work or they're not serious about it. And so if you don't get it in writing, or if they're not willing to put it in writing, it doesn't sound like they were too serious about it. But Texas is also a one consent state. You can voice record. But as far as evidence goes, when you're making a complaint or you're filing a lawsuit, the best kind of evidence is really written evidence that you can present to the court as an exhibit. Some oral conversations can be the basis of a lawsuit if they misrepresented, they told you something that was totally off. But to protect yourself, the best kind of way is to have it in writing.
Okay. One of the questions here. So if you're not in a windstorm area, do you need windstorm insurance, and should it be removed or reduced in price?
If you're not in the windstorm zone, you don't need it.
Okay. And that was what I wanted to know was if the way you were saying it was like it really doesn't make sense to have it on there if there's not a likelihood of it happening because you're not in the stream of that possibility.
Right.
So is Beryl considered that?
No,
Now, let me say this real quick, Miss Letitia, and I
Okay.
know where Cliff is getting ready to go.
Okay.
A lot of times you may not be in a flood area either and not necessarily need flood insurance, but that doesn't mean that your area won't flood. So for I don't want Cliff to put himself in a position where he tells you, oh, you don't need it, and next week we got a tornado that pops up and then you've taken your windstorm off, or just something happens. Definitely talk to your insurance carrier first and kind of express your concerns and things of that nature. And even then get quotes from somebody else. If you think that they're not telling you something, talk with somebody else. But I don't want any of us to tell you to remove something from your insurance. And just
I
then
got
at that
you.
point, something happens. And then now, oh, Cliff told me to do it. So
And
Right.
you did fill that in well because it was kind of a segue to another thing, but I wanted to get the idea of it first, which I got the gist of it. But if you're being quoted something and that's automatically in there, like how do we know that's just not a standard something that goes into your insurance? This has been very enlightening because that can be given to us and we're thinking, okay, that's standard when it's not necessarily standard. It's something that we can ask for, it's something that we should be considering based on where we are, those types of things. I wasn't even aware of that prior to this conversation.
Okay.
Well, if I'm not mistaken too, if you've got a mortgage on your home and you're in one of those areas, your mortgage company is going to require you to have it.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So,
now,
they want to make sure that they're going to be covered in the event something happens to that property, that you've got payment or proper coverage to pay for the replacement or the repairs.
No worries. I have a person that was asking about that she had her deductible actually increased, although not in a windstorm area, for the possibility of the upcoming storm. So after it happened, then there's been issues of them even taking her claim for what it did. And it's wild because what is the recourse when your issue is not necessarily with the contractor yet, but it's with who you pay your insurance to?
I can say this, if you're having a issue with the insurance company, find a public adjuster. Not saying that it's going to always work, but it's a start, because the public adjuster works for you just like the adjuster who works for the insurance company who come out and look at your property. So now you got a level. It's like going to court and you got a defense attorney and a prosecuting attorney. Let them do that battle.
Okay, a public adjuster?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you find a public adjuster, or where do you?
Honestly, I met them through contractors. Just being on site, and that's how I heard about them. I just happened to be on the site one day, and it was a roofing issue, and the guy mentioned have a public adjuster come out, and the homeowner said, I don't know any. He just happened to have one, and he said, call this guy, and he said, call this one, and he said, you probably have to find. He knew two of them, and he told him, good, find your third one. But he was adamant about having a public adjuster come look at it. And that actually, in that case, it helped, because I'm gonna be honest, this is just me talking outside of GI inspection. Insurance companies are in the market to not pay you. You know, that's just me. So I'm the type, I think that you as a homeowner, sometimes you have to think for yourself.
Right.
You have to make that call. It's a judgment call. And sometimes you may not always like it, but you have to think for yourself. It's just like, I don't live in a flood zone, but I live in Houston. I just saw on the news, Houston is sinking. You know, and just because it didn't flood in my area the last flood, doesn't mean I'm not going to get it the next flood. So let me protect my family and my assets. If this is what I think I should be doing, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not saying everybody else do it, but I'm thinking for me and my family. Let me make sure we're covered, because when the time comes and you're not insured, you know, well, they said this was not a flood zone. True. They said it wasn't a flood zone, but doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. You know, doesn't mean you're not going to get any water. What was that? What last storm we got? I think I was maybe
Beryl.
2 blocks.
I think that was Beryl.
No.
We had the tornadoes and stuff before.
Well, that was a flood then. Then, you know, so it's just because storms typically, in the sense of a hurricane, hurricanes typically weaken. You can get a Cat 4 right at the coast, and as soon as it hit landfall, it's going to drop to a 1, and it's going to start weakening as it moves inland. Now, the average windstorm roof is going to hold up to about 135 miles an hour, 130 miles per hour. That's a Cat 2. I mean, that's in a zone 2. Okay, once it goes further inland, it's going to drop down to a tropical storm, tropical depression, but you're still going to have those gusty winds and everything that's coming through. And you're going to see it, you know, you'll see what happens out there.
Okay, we got another question here. How do you make sure that a contractor didn't put a lien on your house when you paid them and didn't contract with someone else who gave you a bid?
Oh, okay. So a lien on your home can only be done if you don't pay someone. And there's pretty specific things that they have to do to put a lien on your home, including giving you notice. If they improperly put a lien on your home, you can challenge the lien. And like I said, if you've paid them, or if they didn't do any work, then that lien should be invalid. And then there are other ways of there's a process they have to follow to issue the lien, but they can't, and I've never really seen somebody put a lien on for not doing the work. They can only really put the lien on if they do the work and then you don't pay them or finish the contract with them.
John, I've had that actually happen to me, and John Moore, and I didn't even know it was on there. I happened to go in to get information for myself and saw that there was one, although it was released, it wasn't anything that hadn't been paid. I actually paid them off early. And I was quite shocked to see in my records that there was a lien, and it was them for my air conditioning system.
Yeah, they do that when you get a loan for an AC unit. They will attach a lien until it's paid off, and then they'll release it.
Well, yeah, you would think that we would know that.
You'd probably have to go back through and look through your financing records from when you got the AC unit. But 9 times out of 10, because of the cost of an AC unit, if you're not
Right.
paying for it outright, they will put a lien on your property until it's paid off. Kind of like a car
Oh,
note.
wow.
Like you get your title, but you've got the loan company has the lien on it, but you then get a new lien once it's actually paid off. I mean, once you get a new what do you call it? What's the vehicle registration title? You get a new
Right.
title with the loan company's name taken off. So yeah,
My goodness.
they do that.
Yeah, no, I would agree that most of the time it's going to be in the paperwork if they're trying to put a lien on your home. So look at the original contract, the paperwork that you have. There's also an option, if they do the work and you haven't paid them, that they might be able to place a lien. But there's also there's a remedy that if they place a lien and it's not, a lien on your homestead and they didn't do it properly, you can challenge the lien and get rid of the lien.
Would you recommend getting release of liens when you're dealing with contractors, especially when they're hiring subs?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you want to get the release of lien. If you don't get the release, then like you said, any time you try to sell the house or if you try to do something else with the house, that lien's going to come up. And
No, I meant as you're working with a contractor before you pay them their payments to get them to sign a lien release. Because we've done that with some of the construction that we've done for the organization when we're building and we're dealing with a contractor and the contractor has to pay subs. We need to know that the contractor has actually already paid all of their subs. So you don't get a payment from us until we get a release of lien saying that all your subs have been paid before you get a payment from us.
no, I think that's right. I don't typically work with too many people with subcontractors, but I think that's right. I think you probably also negotiate that at the beginning and talk to them.
Yeah.
Depends on how big, the subcontractors are, and you might have an agreement about who makes those payments and when. But yes, you definitely, there's another issue to look out for is that if there's a bunch of subcontractors that they're paying the subcontractors for the work that they're doing, because I haven't really seen it, but I've seen it in other situations where the person you pay isn't making the payments to, the mortgage company aren't making the payments that they need to make, and then the subcontractor might, come after you.
What's the recourse there if you've got a sub that hasn't been paid and then the sub tries to come after you as a homeowner looking for payment? Like if they hire.
Yeah, legally, you go and you bring in who that contractor is and you tell the court you had this agreement, you paid the contractor needs to pay them. Now, again, the issue comes in if that contractor goes bankrupt and if you can claw away that money from them. And so that's exactly what you were saying is it's a good idea to follow up, make sure those subcontractors are getting paid throughout the work to kind of protect yourself.
Would that generally be like in a scope of work, Cliff, that if once you contract with somebody, are they supposed to tell you that they're going to use subs to do their job? Or to do
I've
some
never
parts
had
of the
that
job?
issue. I've always assumed it because most companies that I've seen, they always have subs. The GC usually have subs coming in because the GC may be just he may not have some knowledge of all areas, but he has a point of contact. So he may have to have a professional plumber come in and do the plumbing work because it's not just something like I'm just going to replace some valves or something. You may need some extensive plumbing work going on in there, and then they'll sub it out to that guy, the professional plumber. If it's just a patch job on the roof, he may do that himself. But it come time, unless he has like a roofing company, he'll do the roofing work himself. But if he doesn't, he's going to sub that out to a roofing company, and he's going to be there to supervise because he's just supervising all aspects of the construction process of the home.
So would that have to be in writing?
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. Something now I'm learning now is like, it's probably a good idea to put it in writing.
John, is that required in a contract when you're dealing with a general contractor if they're hiring subs that it has to be stated?
Not that I know of. I'm trying to think. I mean, generally what the issue is, they're hiring the subcontractor. So the contract's going to be between them and the subcontractor. And so, if the general contractor doesn't pay the subcontractor, they're really filing a
That still
lawsuit
has
against
nothing to do with you.
that general contractor because they're the ones who, made that contract.
When you're getting bids or quotes from a mom and pop versus a larger company or what have you, is it always recommended that you only deal with somebody who actually has a business space and a business address, like a physical location in where you're, you know, to make sure that they're not one of those fly-by-night companies that just kind of came in, filed a DBA, and then did some work and then left, that they didn't have an actual physical building or an address or something like that, not a PO box.
Yeah, well, because I've kind of mentioned it. I mean, nowadays, and especially after COVID, a lot of things are going digital, like digital office spaces. Um, and so another good useful thing is, getting their ID and taking a picture if it's kind of an individual or a person who maybe doesn't have that physical address, because you just want verification of who they are and how to find them if need be. Again, I think there are reputable businesses nowadays that are more online centric just to cut down on overhead. But, kind of the reasons I spoke for, having a physical location means kind of easier to make complaints. It's easier to find them. They have assets in case you have issues with them. It kind of shows that they have assets. But along those lines too, what I've seen is you got to double check the address that they have. They can give you an address, and I've seen addresses that are in the middle of nowhere off the highway.
Yeah.
It's an address that leads nowhere. Or it's an address that's not theirs, it's just some other random business. And so that raises alarms in my mind. But if the individual is forthcoming, they have, like I said, reviews and they're reputable. Nowadays a lot of stuff is online, but it's more if they're coming door to door, if you find them online, you've had references, just kind of making the extra precautions.
I think I had heard at one point that a general contractor is not required to be licensed in the state. Is that accurate?
Pretty much. I think they just want some training done now. I've never met a general contractor that was licensed.
So, so then how do you check like state records or something against a general contractor that has no license then? Like, and then how do you?
If it's, I would go see if his company had any lawsuits filed against him, any judgments or anything that'll show up. Is he paying the sub? Because if you've been in long enough, you have a history of not paying your sub, it'll travel that, this person hasn't paid the sub, or, he was late paying, or if he's dealing with other subs that are not licensed along the way. And that goes to getting the job done for pennies on a dollar, as I say.
I raised that question because as people are doing their research and then they just so happen to ask somebody for their license or their license number, and then they say, oh, I don't have a license, then they're not necessarily alarmed because the general contractor doesn't have a license, because it's not
But
required.
they still have to have some type of
Insurance and yeah, definitely, for sure. But yeah.
I think the best response that a GC would say is, well, in the state of Texas, I don't have to be licensed, but here's my insurance. If you have any questions, give them all the qualifications that you have. That, to me, that would put me at ease, because I can take what you gave me and go look. But I mean, if you just came to my door with nothing all across the board, I mean, do I really want to bring you on as a GC over the project of my own?
Okay. I believe those are all of the questions, and there's no other questions in the chat and nothing else on the site. And those are definitely all the questions that I had, as I was writing down as we were going. So If there are no other questions, I think we are just about done. We're going to go ahead and have you guys give back the rest of your time for the remainder of the afternoon. So on behalf of A Month of Service, we want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon, and certainly thank our presenters, Mr. Clifford Joe with GI Inspections, along with Mr. John Trevino with Lone Star Legal Aid for providing this information for you guys. The resources for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Department of Insurance, and Department of Licenses and Regulations. I will include that link for those websites as well in the email that I send out to you of this recording, so that you can actually go back and watch it again if you feel the need that you want to go back and watch it, and then also then refer it or give it to somebody else to actually take a look at as well. So thank you guys very much. You all have a wonderful remainder of your afternoon. You take care of yourselves, you stay safe, and we hope to see you all next time. All right.
Thank you.